Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Big Bros Podcast, episode 32 today. My name's Jeremy, and welcome if it's your first time joining us. I'm joined by my lovely friend and co-host, Ilan. How you going, mate, on this beautiful Sunday morning?
I'm pretty good. I'm not going to lie. It is a very lovely day here in Melbourne here on this Sunday, but I've walked in and all the lids are back on, Jeremy, and I think that only means one thing, and that means that you guys, the Carlton Football Club, have capitulated against a strong Fitzroy outfit.
Fitzroy, oh, look, yeah, you've pointed it out. First and foremost, lids are well and truly back on, but you know what? I'm very content, and that might be a different reaction to a lot of Carlton fans, but I'm content. As much as it's disappointing to lose a preliminary final, as much as it would have been absolutely ecstatically awesome and exciting to make it to the big dance next week, I feel like, we over-exceeded in a way, and I was just happy to go along this journey and enjoy the ride. We were bloody bottom three at around 15.
You were 15th at round 15.
We were bottom three. So you know what? Enjoy and be grateful of where we got to. That's the perspective I'm taking. We look forward to next year. We're going to come back bigger and better.
So the great thing there is you weren't crying for 10 minutes outside of Icon Park like I'm sure a lot of Blues supporters were who maybe deluded themselves into believing that the flag was theirs. So I'm glad to say that you're rational, you're logical, and you're composed, which is a really, really rare attribute of most Carlton supporters.
Oh, look, we don't need your empathy, but thank you.
That's all right. It's just nice to drag you back down to reality. But this kind of segues into our topic today. So we're going to be talking about achievement, or the lack thereof sometimes, and how that can actually influence your own sense of self-worth. So tell us a little bit about this topic.
Yeah, well, it is a nice segue, isn't it? Because it's very prevalent in sport, which we've just been touching on, and how achievements can often give us that sense of self-worth, or, that we're maybe proud of ourselves in a certain way, or we're finally reaching a true purpose of what we're meant to achieve in life. We've gotten those achievements, we've strived for what we wanted, we've reached it, and we feel good about ourselves for that. And that comes with its dangers, and it comes with its ups and downs, because it can be a fantastic thing too. We would love to achieve the things we set out to do so. But if we're attaching our self-worth wholeheartedly to that, it does come with a massive cost and a lot of dangers. So we're going to touch on those today, and we're going to flesh those out in ways that are relevant to us as young adults, and how we can implement steps to avoid, getting into that notion of attaching our self-worth to achievements in the long run as well.
Yeah, no, it's a great point. Look, think about it. If you're a 14, 15-year-old boy or girl, and you're on TikTok, you're on Instagram, and you see people flash, all these unrealistic expectations. Maybe the flashy car, the nice handbag, the cool holiday away, the financial freedom. And you say that when you're a 14, 15, 16-year-old teenager, just quite impressionable, you'll start equating naturally, I think, self-worth to achievement. And I think that's a natural thing, because our society naturally will place things that are hard to achieve as things that are almost reflective of that person's ability to achieve it. So if you're able to achieve something noble, that means you're a good person. And I think whether it's a explicit or implicit thing, it actually doesn't matter, because as an impressionable young person in Western society, that's what you're naturally going to equate your self-worth with. It's much more sexy to think that, that shiny car, that endless financial freedom, my job title will make me a better person than it is just being like, you know what, I'm kind to everyone around me. I try to be a good person. I try to do right things by others. I try to be moral. That's not as much of a sexy idea for your self-worth than it is maybe attaining a cool car that shows everyone, hey, look how rich I am.
Exactly. And you said impressionable there, especially as a 14, 15-year-old teenager, older adult, whatever it may be, on TikTok, on Instagram. And that's the thing. It can come down to things as simple as viewing likes, viewing followers, viewing engagement on social media, whatever it might be. You look at that profile that has the 500,000 followers or the million views and all those clicks, and you think, they must be doing so well for themselves. They've clearly achieved what they've wanted to. They've clearly made a lot of people happy if they're getting all these likes and all these views. And, they must be such an incredible person for that. But it's really not the case. And we're so impressionable at any age, but definitely in our formative years. And, I've definitely fallen victim to that. And for me, it comes when I think about, looking at physiques, for example, like I love going to the gym and, I believe I work pretty hard in the gym myself.
Do you take creatine?
I take creatine. I thought you were going to say some other substances, which I definitely do not take.
No. You're the sort of person that would have a banana for your pre-workout. So I think you're the most innocent.
No,
but you take creatine, which is...
exactly.
I've never taken creatine, but I want to.
Exactly. Get involved. It's good stuff, mate. But anyways, yeah, looking at physiques on social media, often you see like false physiques or incredible lighting or things that might only look good in the morning versus the afternoon. And these are things that you can, they obviously imply false expectations and false perceptions of people. And we can attach achievement and self-worth to that. And I've often done that because I think, well, my physique doesn't look like that and I'm working just as hard. So what am I doing wrong? And I'm looking at these guys and girls and thinking, well, they're achieving the best and, their self-worth must be sky high. But, you actually hear them talk and they speak up about it, the ones that are really open and honest, and they'll say that, look, don't believe everything you see. And this doesn't mean that, I'm doing well in other areas of life, or I might not be doing so well mentally or with my relationships, because this might be all I do and focus on in my life. And this is a nice point that we can think about, is that a great way to not tie your self-worth to achievements is by having a lot of different things that are going for you in life, essentially different hobbies, maybe different things that you're interested in, so that when the thing that you're focusing on might not be going to plan as to how you hope it might be, there might be other areas that you can come back to in your life and think, well, this is an area where I'm doing quite well in, and that might make you feel quite good about yourself then.
So what you're saying there is you're essentially diversifying your interests and your hobbies and your domains. So you're not just dedicating yourself to one pure thing. It's almost like when I'm not a day trader of any kind. I'm no expert in finance or anything. But when it comes to like investing stocks, I think that could be a crucial reason why people go into like diversify their investment funds. And correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't the idea there is that if you experience a loss in one domain or one stock, then hopefully the other stocks might counterbalance that if they increase. So I feel like that's kind of a cool analogy when you apply it to your own self-worth and your kind of hobbies, because for us, we do this podcast because we love it, right? It's like another domain. And whilst it can be natural and feel like if we do well with this podcast, our self-esteem will increase or self-worth will increase. But at the same time, we're also not just podcasters, right? We're students, we work a job, we have friends, we have a bunch of other things we do. I play field hockey. You commit a lot of time at taking creatine and going to the gym. So as soon as you start diversifying your kind of hobbies, it's much easier to not get attached to solely one thing. And that's maybe a good or a bad thing. So
it's a good thing. I think that's a good thing, mate, because you know what? Like, we're a friend of each other. We're, a partner to someone. We are a work colleague to someone. These are all different things that make up who we are. And like you said, this diversification of what makes us us is, I think, the key element of what we should focus on in terms of not attaching your self-worth to achievements, because there are so many things that we're essentially achieving and it's not down to that one thing.
Correct. So there's someone I wanted to bring up, because you were mentioning the whole thing before about how like we might look at people who have achieved a lot and believe that their self-worth is grand, that they're a noble person. And Tiger Woods was a very, very successful golfer, but he had a lot of issues outside of the sporting domain. He obviously, I think, was well documented in the media for the wrong reasons. And a part of, I think, his success was purely because of how much he sacrificed in his pursuit of greatness.
Yeah.
You look at Michael Jordan as well. Like, if you ever watch the Last Dance documentary, people described him as an asshole, as a piece of shit off the court because of how determined he was to achieve greatness. Now, I'm not saying that, you can achieve greatness whilst being, like, the only way to achieve greatness is by being a a immoral person outside of your domain. But what I am saying is that usually when you're going and you're bullish on one achievement and you believe that achievement's going to, in a sense, cultivate or fill that void that tells you you're a good person or not, it can be quite a dangerous and unstable foundation to build that house on. So the reason I mention that danger with attaching your self-worth to your achievement is because a lot of times when we're working hard for something and we're just kind of goal oriented, where it's similar to the whole thing about the arrival fallacy we spoke about a few weeks ago, but you're essentially not allowing yourself to be a good person until you've achieved your certain goal.
Yeah.
And how long does it take to actually achieve something? Good things take a lot of time. So are you only allowing yourself to feel good once you've achieved it? Well, if you are, then it's that can cause your, I mean, in my own personal experience, whenever I've become solely goal oriented, it tends to make the everyday a little more shit. Yeah. Right? You're going to be a bit more stressed. You're going to be a bit more anxious about achieving that goal or not. So I feel like we can get into the solutions later, but yeah, I think diversifying your achievements or rather diversifying your pursuits is a really cool way, because at least this way you're not going to be solely attached to the outcome of one of them.
Yeah, exactly. And when I think of someone who would typically be seen as great and someone of strong self-worth, and this is someone that we could all, I guess, we would all know and look up to, being, football fans essentially, is someone like Christian Petrarca, someone who is excellent on the football field, excellent in what they do as their job on the football field. But then look at the other things that he's done to diversify himself as, a chef, essentially, as the volunteering work he does, as, being around different communities and getting around grassroots football level and just exposing himself to different hobbies, But I think the main one people can think about is, him being the chef, or him being, I guess, a fashion icon in a way. Like, these are all different hobbies that this person has done to essentially diversify themselves. And it's a great tip that we can employ as young adults, is that, we are all going to be hopefully working towards that one thing that we do essentially want to achieve, like whether that is a job, an academic pursuit, a hobby, a passion, whatever it might be. There might be that one thing for you that you really do want to work on achieving. But in times when that might not be going your way, or you just want to, focus on other things as well, diversifying yourself and employing different other hobbies and interests is a great way to fall back on other things when, like you said, it's a stock essentially. Some things go up, some things go down. And it's important not to tie your self-worth and sense of being to that one thing specifically. And yeah, ultimately Christian Petrarca is a great example for that.
He is. And, when you look at someone's life when they passed away and you're at their funeral, you don't tend to speak about their achievements. You don't speak about the fact that they were a CEO at this company, or they had achieved X, Y, and Z of this amount of money. You tend to speak about the family they've left behind, or, what kind of intrinsic qualities did they have.
Yeah.
They were a loving, caring person, always wanted to do right by others. And that tends to be the common theme, that when someone passes, you might touch on their achievements, but you just emphasize the person that they were.
Yeah. What is the true legacy they're leaving behind? And often that true legacy is, like you said, it's the person that they are. What are their true values? What are their true traits? And those are the things we remember more than these big metrics, right? No one's going to remember the amount of views you got on that one video, or, how many clicks and likes you got for your physique in the gym on the 22nd of September in, 2005. No one's going to remember that day, but they will remember maybe the person that you were in terms of your dedication to the gym, or your dedication to bettering yourself. And those are things that you can attach to your self-worth. What are the characteristics,
your values,
and traits and values that maybe indirectly give you the opportunity to achieve those metrics, right? It's putting in place the values and characteristics to maybe get that gold medal or get that trophy.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think a lot of people might be listening to this podcast and saying, like, look, I know for a fact I should not be attaching whether I do well in that, that assessment, to my self-worth, what job title I have to my self-worth. But a lot of people might also say at the same time, well, I don't know why this belief has been built into me. Sure, it's all well and good to say society's done this, society's done that, but there's maybe some more individualistic levels to it. And that's things like maybe when you were younger, your childhood, perhaps you were never praised for just being a good person, by being a kind person. Maybe you were only praised for when you got or did something nice, or you got, or rather, not that you did something nice, but you got an external achievement. Maybe you won the race at the athletics carnival, you came first, and that's the only time you got praise, when you did something nice on the sporting field, maybe when you got a good grade at school. And that shit can really stay with you, because if that's all you remember from your childhood, that's what you associate your self-worth with. Because if you were never praised for just being you, you know, being Kenuff, as I haven't watched Barbie, but the whole thing about just being who you are and being loved and accepted for who you are, what can happen then is you'll just start tying your self-worth to the materialistic world.
Yeah.
And it's really hard to separate yourself from that, because once you're a child, your brain absorbs everything. You're like a sponge. It's like clay, and then it hardens, and then it's much harder to unlearn those almost mental models that you've ingrained into yourself. So I think once you kind of look at, maybe, for some it might be their childhood, once you kind of examine your upbringing and see what happened, that can actually inform you maybe when you're a parent yourself.
Exactly. Like, think about when you were a little kid and you were in the athletics carnival at school, and mum or dad said to you, if you win your events today, we'll get Macca's on the way home. That's that little external achievement that you can get for winning, right? Never mention the fact that, if you put in your best effort today, no matter the result, but I see you really trying out there and giving it 110%, we'll walk away with some Macca's at the end of the day as a little reward. Could you imagine if, like, as kids we were told that, or in schools we were taught to actually give effort or give our best shot, and the external gratitude or praise would then follow versus just like an academic metric? It would be paramount in terms of our development as young adults and then into the workforce, because it would teach us to dedicate ourselves, and therefore I think it would actually enhance loyalty to jobs, to companies, to relationships, and not always looking at the metrics of them.
I love that. It actually brings back a really cool memory. When I was in primary school, I used to hate swimming carnivals. Not because I wasn't like a particularly good swimmer. I also wasn't like a terrible swimmer, but I just got really, really nervous for them. And my mum would always say, it really doesn't matter. It's a school swim carnival, but what does matter is that you just try your hardest, and whatever happens, happens.
Yeah.
Try your hardest so you can at least be happy with yourself. Doesn't matter if you come last, doesn't matter if you come first. What does matter is your effort. And that's a much better feeling, because then you're not concerned about the result. You're just concerned about what you can control. And if you can control how hard you work, and you can kind of dislocate yourself from the outside world, that's where success actually does happen. It's funny because I think I was reading somewhere that like a lot of sports psychologists are now employing sort of different tactics of how they instruct athletes to perform. So instead of getting the athlete to focus on maybe the external metric of, I must score a goal to keep my position in the squad, or I must do this or lay these amount of pressure tackles, it becomes far more task focused rather just like, what do I have to do in this moment? So you detach away. You don't think about what you have, like the consequences of your action. You just think about the action of itself. You really break it down. And I feel like, I'm not a sports psychologist or anything like that, but even when I look at those principles in anything I do, anything I'm dedicating myself to, once I like strip back the goal or the materialistic achievement, I'm way more likely to actually do well at what I'm supposed to be doing. Yeah.
Coming back to that sports psychology example is great for all of us to relate to, and it's an easy one to relate to because, ultimately these athletes are at the top of their level and putting themselves through such paces to get those achievements. But if we do think back to ourselves, and one thing that a lot of us can relate to, most of us going through an academic system or a school system is, if we just take an example of not being ready or wanting to achieve a certain mark on a test, for an example, you want to achieve a high mark, a high grade, and the exam's coming, and you think to yourself, God, I'm not ready. I'm so bad. I'm not going to achieve this. I'm going to be a failure. I'm not going to pass. Let's employ those examples that maybe athletes would use and think, all right, let's take a step back here and break this down. Ask yourself why. Like, let's deconstruct this idea of why are you saying to yourself that you're not ready or you're not good enough, and actually try to remove the emotionality from the situation and break it down, because oftentimes you are ready, right? You have probably put in the work or the study to at least give it your best shot on that assignment and hopefully achieve the best thing that you can achieve. You've probably put in the work, right? So maybe it's just nerves in that situation. Maybe it is external factors like being told that if you don't achieve X, Y, and Z, you won't get X, Y, and Z, right? So if we actually just deconstruct a lot of our irrationality at times, that is such a great, I think, coping strategy to employ and to actually, stay calm and do what you need to do, and then carry through and focus on the next thing.
It's funny because like when you're feeling stressed or burnt out or anxious, it's usually just a reaction to the things we're telling ourselves or to the environment at large.
Yeah.
I think if you start getting into the habit of looking at deconstructing everything and looking at things one by one, and you start ticking off those little things, it could be that assessment. Say you've got a math test and you are like 2 chapters behind. And in order for you to feel confident, you just need to get like 2 chapters of work done so you can feel somewhat prepped.
Exactly.
Break it down. Start with the first thing. First question. Question of like the exercise book that's there for revision. Break it down as simply as you can. You get one done, you at least get a bit of self-efficacy. You get a bit of confidence. Like, okay, the ball is rolling, the wins are on the board.
Yeah.
And you start seeing that will start creating a little bit more like, excitement. Like, holy shit, I can actually do this.
Yeah.
So it's funny because our emotions are purely reactive. We can be so reactive. Our feelings are so reactive. So it's cool because you can, in a way, manipulate your state by, for example, just putting things into little smaller increments. But it's also important to recognize that just looking at these big goals as a whole macro thing, no matter how prepared you are for something, it's still stressful. Like, we can't comprehend and digest things in wholes. We need to think about things more incrementally, I reckon.
Yeah, and like you said, we're reactive creatures as humans. So if we can just be present, and it sounds cliche, but seriously, because we are so reactive as humans and we're so used to just reacting based on emotion in that one intense moment, if we can really get into the habit of just taking a breather and deconstructing what it is we're feeling in that moment, you're going to be miles ahead of, yourself in a way, let alone other people. You're going to be miles ahead of yourself in bettering yourself as a person, just having that capacity to be like, hold up, let's deconstruct why I'm feeling this way and work through it. Because, like you said, we're reactive and it's just a part of who we are. So we can't feel so hard on ourselves for it.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I think paradoxically as well, the whole thing about tying your self-worth to your achievements, it's that it's going to end up giving you that lack of fulfillment long-term anyway. So if you're always chasing, you're looking for that next quick best fix, you're going to constantly feel unfulfilled because you're not in love with the journey. You're more in love with the outcome.
Yeah. And I think that in turn also might reflect poorly on your relationships, right? Which is one thing that we came back to as to what we would typically think about if, when we are remembering people, when they do pass, for example.
Tiger Woods, perfect example. Yeah. Once again, he had terrible relationships in his
with
personal
those around him. Exactly. When you're always so fixated on that medal, that mindset of achieving that one thing, and then you're going to be happy. It's that gold medal syndrome again. And the people closest to you might be the ones to suffer at the end of the day. And you know what? Yeah, you might achieve that gold medal, but are you really going to be happy in those other areas? You might not be. You really might not be.
Yeah, for sure. So there's people listening to us and they'll be thinking, great. So you've told me about diversifying my interests. You've told me about maybe becoming self-aware of self-aware of why I might harbor these beliefs. What's something else that you would tell people if they're struggling with the whole idea of attaching their self-worth to their achievements?
I would tell them that life is bigger than this, and you know what? People honestly do not give a shit. It's as simple as that. People don't care as much as you do, and I think the one moment where you actually recognize in your life that it is just meaningless to think so much of yourself in this one moment is the moment where you will actually start to enjoy what it is you're doing. Because we can think of it as kind of like a selfish thing in a way. It might be a bit of a narcissistic perspective or quite a vain perspective to be so fixated on just yourself or achieving that one thing that might only just benefit you, right? Whether it is that medallion or that trophy or, reaching that level of Instagram followers, whatever it might be. It might honestly come down to just looking at yourself in a bit of a vain way and, recognizing that it's not that important and no one around you probably gives a crap about it is the moment where you'll start to actually think, all right, let's deconstruct this idea. What am I doing? Why am I doing it? Is it providing value to others as much as it's providing value to me? And these are the questions that might actually allow you to, have those first initial thoughts of maybe breaking down what it is you're doing and whether it's worth it or not.
For sure. I really like that. I think that's a beautiful way to end the podcast episode today, Jeremy, because I think it's one of those things you can ramble on, but it's a simple message, which is, if we are going to summarize this episode, is go for your achievements. Go 100% into your achievements, but know that you're going to fail along the way. And if you're going to fail, that's not a reflection of your character. What is a reflection of your character are your behaviors and your actions towards other people, towards yourself. Are you a person of high integrity or low integrity? And I think those are better questions to ask yourself rather than, have I attained these amount of Instagram likes? Have I gotten this nice shiny car? Have I gotten this nice cool job title of, CFO?
Yeah.
And once you start doing that, it can prioritize your thinking and it can prioritize a lot of your feelings and honestly, prioritize
your love for the journey, essentially.
Love for the journey. And it's we sound like we're fucking preachers and we kind of are at this point, but it's so important because you want to enjoy it along the way. That's the best part.
Yeah.
The best part is embracing those little struggles along the way,
because like we said, if, you either win or you learn, right? We say failures and they might be failures objectively in objective metrics, but in terms of character and in terms of character building and who we are as people, they're just opportunities to learn.
Correct. And again, on your deathbed, when you're at your own funeral, and it's a pretty kind of dark thing to think about, people won't speak about your achievements per se, the things that maybe you held so close to your heart. They'll speak about the integrity of your character. Yeah.
That's what people are remembering you for, and that's what, we value mostly in our relationships, right? And like you said, we might brush over them. We might say congratulations to people along the way and how proud we are of them for achieving certain things. But why we love each other as mates, or partners, whatever it is those true embedded qualities and characters as people.
Amen, brother. Guys, we hope you love this episode. We hope that if it does resonate with you, or you might think it might resonate with one of your friends, feel free to share it across to them. If you're enjoying us, why not rate us 5 stars on Spotify or Apple Podcasts? It definitely does help. We love it. We appreciate it. And, if there's anything that you guys resonate with, feel free to even DM us. As Jeremy loves to say, our DMs are always
open.
Beautiful. On that note, guys, have a lovely and happy Tuesday.
Bye.